Hello there. Welcome to the very first FFS Livestream. We're here in the atrium of the Pleasance Dome with a couple of guests that we'll introduce you to in a moment. This is our very first day. Obviously there will be some teething problems, so bear with us. Obviously being a preview day, Fringe officially opens on Friday, so being a preview day you can't judge us by this, all right? Promise? Okay, good. So this is Fringe Festival Support Livestream. We are a daily chat show every morning, recording every morning. You'll be seeing us later in the day once we've edited it. And we're going to be trying to bring together the Edinburgh Fringe community. So we're going to have performers and PR people and journalists and venue staff, workers, everybody working the festival. And we're just going to sit and have a little chat and try and understand each other better and hope that that encourages just a better spirit of community. We're also going to be offering you bits of advice. If you'd like to know anything, if you'd like any questions answered, then we'll be popping up the details of how to contact us throughout the show. So, without further ado, I shall move on to introduce my guests here. So, do you want to introduce yourself and tell me what you're all about?
I think I'd rather have you introduce both of us, right? and maybe say our names.
I was going to get you to do that yourself.
My name is Singh.
Sid, I can handle.
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Nghia.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We've been struggling with that for a little while. We're trying to cross cultural boundaries here and get that correct.
This is a show about mental health, right?
Absolutely.
I don't think a good way to start is to have someone apologize for their name.
No, exactly.
That's right.
So, guys, you're both comedians. Let me turn to you first, Sid, because you have an interesting double life, I think. So you are a comedian and a human rights lawyer.
Yes. So I just graduated from law school, and with an emphasis on homeless and refugee law, as well as startup law. So
it's going to become more and more useful
as
the years progress.
The moment a refugee invents something, I'll be like, I'm the perfect lawyer for you.
Excellent. But you're also a comic.
I'm also a comedian. I've been a comedian for 8.5, 9 years now, mostly in America. So.
And this is your third Fringe?
This is my fifth Fringe now.
Fifth Fringe?
But it's my first one with a one-man show. I've been doing 60 minutes of stand-up this entire time, but this is the first time where I was like, oh, let me talk about how much Silicon Valley sucks since I've lived there.
Right.
And actually make it have a point.
Okay. And...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, that wasn't me getting your name wrong. That one was just...
You need to apologize again.
So you're based here in Edinburgh?
Currently, yes.
Yeah, and you're at the university, or you've just graduated?
I recently graduated, actually, since July.
But you've also been doing the Fringe?
I've been doing Fringe. It's my third Fringe, actually.
Third Fringe. That's where I'm getting confused, you see. I'm getting them mixed up.
Well, we are the same.
It's preview. So...
This was recorded on August 10th.
Tell me what your first memory of getting to Edinburgh was, like your first sort of memory of the Fringe itself.
Like just the Fringe or Edinburgh in general?
Let's do the Fringe, I think. Let's stick to the Fringe.
Well, actually, I didn't do... My first Fringe wasn't the actual whole run of the Fringe. I arrived around like the first, basically the final week. Because I was in my back home in Vietnam doing other things, so I couldn't do the whole Fringe. But I decided, I should give Fringe a go because I'll be leaving Edinburgh at some point, which is this year. So I hopped on a plane and went back to Edinburgh and have a taste of the Fringe. It's just the final week.
What did you think?
I think it's awful. No, it's great. It's, for the final week, it was, even though things was cooling down, but you can feel the atmosphere and the people you meet and the opportunity you're given, particularly as the comedian who's just starting. So
were you doing guest spots and stuff?
I was doing guest spots. I was also flyering for other people's shows as well.
So what's that like? Let's get into that because I'm very interested in that. I personally hate flyering. I always think that when you walk down the mile, nobody wants you to give them a flyer and nobody wants to give out flyers. How do you get through that? What do you think the key secret to a good flyering is?
Well, I think it's just the first thing you need to have a loud voice, because it's all about projecting your voice. You're essentially like an agent for someone else shows, and you just have to make yourself present, even though if you're being quite annoying. You're like, hey, you want to come watch the show? But something like at the same time, you need to have like a positive mindset, because you're gonna have people, you're gonna get constant rejection all the time. It's like dating, but it's like my dating life.
Grim.
It's nice that performers are kind of used to rejection, or like getting actors, getting jobs and not getting jobs.
It's a nice feeling when
It's nice to get rejected in a completely different way.
Yeah, indeed. And it's great. It's a great feeling. It's like you have highs and lows. You have great feeling when like get your flyers, and you're like, oh, that's great. It comes, even if they're not going to see the show, and sometimes they just throw it in a bin in front of you.
Just like in dating.
And they were saying the interesting thing about flyering is like if you fly for your own show, like you've got a friend for life. If you actually get one person to come see it, you've got a fan for life, because they'll come see it and they'll sit there, they'll see the show, and if they don't like it, maybe they won't. But if they do, then they'll come back and see you again and again, because they feel like there's that personal connection. Because it's like, oh, I know that guy. I met that guy in the street. He gave me this flyer. I will keep it and frame it.
Or at the very least, we'll buy you a drink after the show.
Well, I don't know what kind of sizes of crowds you're getting. It depends. We've had crowds where more than happy to buy everybody there a drink, because sometimes it's been just us.
I think that's just part of it. I think you have to be able to perform to a packed out couple hundred people, and you have to be able. Last year I had, I think, 15 to 16 shows with over 100 people, but I had one show that had one person in it. And I just had to do the entire hour to just that one guy, and I was like, sure. I mean, he seems into it, I'll do it. I mean, you don't really get a choice.
There's somebody I know who does one-woman shows, theatre shows, and she carries a bottle of wine in a bag. And the deal is, if there's ever one person in the audience, or like a couple of people in the audience, she'll just crack open, it's like this emergency wine, crack open the wine, free tickets for tomorrow's show.
Yeah.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, or just this like very intense one-to-one.
Oh, yeah. One of the things I remember, I told the guy, I was like, hey, you can come back tomorrow. He's like, oh, I leave tomorrow. I'd rather just see the show. And I was like, oh, all right. I'll do it for you and the bar staff then.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was your first memory?
Of the Fringe. Well, it was crazy, because I had no idea what to expect. My first Fringe was a total fluke. What happened was this Australian comic, his now wife, was in New York, and we became friends at an open mic, and she offered to let me split a show with her. And so, without knowing what I was doing, I just sort of flew over here, and they sort of took care of the accommodations and all that stuff. And I just sort of walked into this like magical world where you get to perform every day for more than 5 to 10 minutes at a time.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. You get good luck stories like that. That sounds like a good way to start.
Well, especially because I definitely have had my fair share of like, oh no, now this is happening. The Fringe will throw you every curveball in the book. But the craziest thing that's ever happened to me at the Fringe, well, one of them, is there was for a while these shows at a venue that no longer exists called the New Waverly Arches. And it was basically this dungeon right next to Waverly Station. And it looked like a pope had died in there.
Okay.
But they walked in and they had jury-rigged the lights the night before. So no one thought those lights were going to work. Mm-hmm. And I walked in, I was like, okay, we got to cancel this show. This is not safe under any... But then like 30 audience members somehow found it. I guess they had liked me the year before. They found the show. And I was like, hey, we're going to cancel the show. And they were like, no, you got to do the show. The organizer said that.
Are you sure they weren't there to see the dead Pope?
I think the dead Pope already had enough fans. It was a very long line. So,
okay, fair enough.
And so they're watching the show, and in the middle of the show, 2 pigeons fly into the rafters and start, I don't know if I can curse on this, so I'm gonna...
You can curse.
Okay, they start fucking in the rafters.
You went there?
Audibly. Oh yeah, I went for the best.
I thought it was going to be, I thought we were going to go low level.
Spicy.
That's fine. We'll work out later whether we bleep that or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they are going at it, you know what I mean? Like, and the audience cannot see them, but they can hear them. And finally, 20 minutes later, like a really sizable amount of time, the pigeons finally leave. And I tell the audience that they're gone. You guys, they're gone. And everyone cheers. And as they cheer, one of the pigeons trips the wire and the lights go out.
Oh.
And I had to finish my hour being lit by the audience's cell phones.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, an extended blackout of that length is probably not gonna. That's not gonna win any awards. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I just remember being like, "Whoo, 25 more of those."
Was that noise the pigeon
Yeah,
lovemaking?
I've learned a lot from them. Yeah,
That's a good impression. It's quite niche. I don't know how many times you'll be able to use it.
You know, more often than you'd think. Yeah. I do a lot of pigeon material now.
We're going to take a quick break here because what we're going to do is we did a pre-recorded interview with Mark Fisher, who's a writer who's written a lot about the Fringe in the past. We thought it might be nice to start off the Fringe by talking a little bit about the history of the Fringe. So let's have a look at what he had to say.
Yeah, the history of the festival is fascinating, not least because the DNA of the Fringe that we see today is there in 1947 when the very first thing that you could describe as a Fringe happened. What happened in 1947, the Edinburgh International Festival was founded, and if you can think about the time of history, this was just after the Second World War, and there was a great sense of wanting to bring Europe back together again, the world back together again. And if you look at what people were saying at the time of the foundation of the Edinburgh International Festival in 1947, if you read the sort of great and the good and the things that people were saying, it's all very, very high-minded about the sort of flowering of culture and the bringing of people together. So I think there was a huge amount of idealism in the Edinburgh International Festival. For those who don't know, the Edinburgh International Festival is a curated, invited festival with an artistic director who's responsible for taking over the main theatre venues and concert halls in the city, the Usher Hall, the Royal Lyceum, the King's Theatre, and so on, the Edinburgh Festival Theatre, and putting in those the world's greatest opera companies, the world's greatest dance, ballet companies, high-end concerts and theatre and so on. They've also expanded in recent years to some of the more interesting popular music forms as well. But that again, for the International Festival, that model still exists now in 2018 as it did then in 1947. But the fascinating thing that happened in 1947, and I think it was because of this idealism, 8 companies that hadn't been invited, because the International Festival was still is an invited festival, they thought they'd just come and perform anyway. Why not? Let's just come. And they didn't have a name, they didn't have any organisation. I don't even know how much they even were aware of each other initially. And they performed their shows there was a YMCA and similar sort of spaces that you will see being used by the Fringe today, for the very reason that the Royal Lyceum and the King's Theatre were being all taken over already by the International Festival. And so that idea that is fundamental to the Fringe today of a sort of spontaneous outpouring of uninvited performance and art still was there from 1947. Nobody asked these companies to come, and nobody programmed them.
Nobody wanted them.
Nobody wanted them. They just came because they wanted to come and they want to be part of this action. And interestingly as well, that if you look at what those companies were, they were I think they were all theatre. So this is long before the days of stand-up comedy, but that you could see within those companies sort of the spread of shows that you'll get now. So there will be an amateur company and a professional company and a left-wing company and a mainstream company, all within that sort of mix. New plays and classical plays and so on. And for some reason it just sort of caught on. The word fringe hadn't caught on initially. The word fringe was first coined the following year in, I believe it was the Edinburgh Evening News, by a journalist who referred to the events that were happening on the fringes of the Edinburgh International Festival. So it's it's the fringe of the festival. That's where that word comes from. And occasionally you get a printer who would say, oh, well, we should maybe be making a program for all of these events, and independently a printer would put the stuff together in over the first 10 years or so before it became formalised. And at one stage it was called the Festival Adjuncts was the name. So that we could be here talking about I don't know what the name of your organisation would become, but Festival Adjuncts.
The acronym would probably not work out.
Yes, it would be very rude, even ruder than the one that you got. And so that didn't catch on. But then I think it was about 1958 that the fringe companies got together and said we could do with really just administration in terms of box office, selling tickets, a centralised box office, and so on. And so the Edinburgh Festival Fringe Society was formed in 1958. And again, that spirit still exists today. If you talk to the chief executive of the Festival Fringe, she's not responsible for telling people that they should do this show or not do that show. She's entirely responsible as administration to make sure that companies are talking to venues and venues are talking to maybe the city council or whatever it requires. But it's a facilitation organisation, not an artistic leadership. And what started to happen is that these companies kept on coming back every year, and the more they came back, the more there was pressure on space. And at some point, somebody thought, well, rather than just having a show at 8 o'clock as we normally do, maybe we could have another company in at 2 o'clock. And this idea of what now feels like multiplex cinemas, the theatrical equivalent of that. We're sitting here in Greenside venue in Infirmary Street, and this is one of the smaller venues, but there will be a number of shows that you can see during the day, and you could probably spend, I don't know, as much as a week just seeing shows here as you tick them off your list.
I think they've got 4 spaces.
Four spaces,
running
each of them
day.
having a new show every 2 hours or so, and so you can quite quickly build up. And that particular model of a venue looking over a number of different rooms started really with the assembly rooms in the early 1980s, 1982, something like that, when William Burdett Coutts, who's in charge of it, had this idea that you could have one venue with several different things going on in it. And therefore, the city had the capacity to become bigger and bigger because there are lots of university buildings apart from anything else, and quite a lot of church halls, rooms behind pubs.
Presumably the university buildings would be empty during the month of August.
It's a very nice coincidental thing that the university rooms, whether it's a classroom or a lecture theatre or a sports hall, all of these things are available. And the bigger venues now, which would be the Pleasance, the Underbelly, Gilded Balloon and Assembly, all make use, and I think some of the others as well, C venues also, all make use of university property. In addition to that, there's all sorts of council buildings and independent halls and so on. If someone hasn't been to Edinburgh before, Edinburgh's a compact city, 500,000 population, which doubles to 1 million during the festival, but 500,000 people, quite condensed in the city centre. So none of these venues are very far from each other, so you can tend to walk from place to place, which gives a real festival atmosphere.
Yeah, and there's usually 500,000 people just on the Royal Mile at any given moment during the day. That's why people wear stilts.
Certainly seems that way, yeah.
They're not performers, they're just trying to get around.
Just get around,
They're just locals.
Yeah.
How big is it now?
I think we're over. We've gone. Numbers are never good in my head, but I think we've gone over 3,000 shows now. So it's people, because I've been living in Edinburgh for 30 years, and people ask me what was it like 30 years ago, and the only comparison I can give is sort of saying, well, you can think of a galaxy and you can think of the universe. And the galaxy is already mind-blowingly big, and that's what it was like in when I was here in 1986, 7 or something like that. And now we've got a universe, and of course it's still mind-bogglingly big, but it was mind-boggling already. So
it's like Marvel films. They just keep
the
adding and
universe
adding
keeps
and
expanding.
adding.
Yeah. And quite, I've spoken to people who've been, maybe you're a box office worker or or maybe you're an actor in a show in one venue, and you can get access to all of the shows in your venue, and you can quite easily never set foot in a single other venue the whole time, while having an amazing, culturally rich, diverse experience of all of this.
Yeah, because some venues have, if you've got a performer pass, they'll let you in to see other shows if there's seats available, because nobody wants it empty.
And actually, if you are a performer, that's one of the real opportunities that you should you should take advantage of once you're comfortable with your show, you're happy with the show going on and so on. Just go out and see as much as you can, because you'll become a better performer as a result of seeing all of this other stuff.
I'm a terrible performer. I only put on a show just to get the pass to go and see a whole bunch of free stuff, better stuff.
Every obstacle in my path.
We're still talking about the pigeon screwing. By the way, we've just been talking about that pretty much for about 6 hours now.
For almost as long as those pigeons screwed during my show.
So welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed that potted history of the Edinburgh Fringe. we're going to continue to talk about the Fringe. We covered a little bit about the flyers, but how do you go about marketing yourself? Now I know, Sid, you have PR people.
I got a PR person.
You have
yeah,
PR.
Yeah. I'm fancy again like that. No, my friend recommended this guy to me, and Julian Hall, and he did a great job. So I was like, let's keep having him.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's flyers and posters, and you write articles for papers, and so on and so forth.
And do you do your own flyering? Do you?
I do a mix. I tend to hire people who seem earnest, and I try to flyer myself.
Do you do that when you're here? Because I do think there's a scouting process that happens. Like, I tend to take flyers, and then I don't know if this is frowned upon. Maybe someone can tell me if this is frowned upon in the community. But like, if you get approached by a really good flyer, like you make a note of it, and then you try and find out who they are later on and use them.
Oh, absolutely. And as long as you're not trying to take them for that specific hour,
yes.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all about the people you know as well. Once you establish that kind of connection, they just phone you up and say, "Hey, can you flyer for me this year?"
Yeah.
But I do wish I'm trying to do this more this year. But we do have to take care of our flyers better.
Yes.
I feel like there's so many people don't take into account. These people are working really hard for very little money for a soul-crushing job. It is soul-crushing. And if you want them to do a good job, and like a good flyer is worth their weight in gold, you should take care of them. You should pay them. You should give them bonuses. You should take them out for a drink once a week so they don't lose their sanity.
You know how I feel.
I'm trying to tell my flyers this year too. Like, if you're out late flyering for me or something like that, I will pay for your Uber home. Like, I want you guys in the best shape possible to flyer for me.
So if you're looking to flyer for anybody, this is the gentleman you need to talk to. He's going to look after you.
No, that's the opposite. You should be demanding this from everyone.
Yes. No, true.
Capitalism can't end just because you have a terrible job.
Workers' rights.
Yes.
Big fan of this. I was a human rights lawyer, as you said.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm glad we had you on early doors.
Yeah.
Let's talk about reviews, because that's something that we always obviously obsess about during the Fringe.
I think I go the other way. To me, it's so cute. We don't have reviews in America. I released an album, and sales were good, and that was really the only review it had. There were a few people in the Midwest who tried reviewing it, and I was like, you guys should try again. Even though they gave it good reviews, they give it good reviews and like, this guy is the first guy we've liked since so and so, and you're like, oh, that guy is a guy from the 50s. I think he might want to see comedy sooner. So to me, it's like really interesting.
That's interesting. So there's not so much emphasis on critiques, and I mean, theatre obviously, like Broadway.
Right. Broadway might have it, but a stand-up special, it's like, can you sell tickets or not? Like, to me, that's why it's so interesting. I'm a big sports fan, so I like reading reviews just like, okay, this person liked it, or this person was like, didn't like this part of it, or whatever.
Yeah.
You just get to be like, oh, this is unique.
I think it's really important to remember, we were talking to people yesterday who were saying, it's an opinion, it's someone's opinion, and you mustn't lose sight of that. You've got to remember that it's just like one opinion.
Well, basically, because I've had good reviews, it's not an opinion, it is objective fact.
I was going to say, until you get the 5-star review, that one is definitive.
Oh, so nice that they put their opinions aside to get objective for once.
Have you had reviews?
Well, not at the Fringe. I had reviews in my other gigs, because I did like a gig where it was like a competition, and it was held around this area within the uni area, and there was someone from the Skinny magazine. They came to review. They review all the acts and things that they were given. So I was given like a small sentence because one joke I did.
Yeah, and it didn't reveal what that joke was, I hope.
Well,
because that's always nice when the reviewer said he had this one great joke and here it is. So now you no need to see him.
No need to see him. So that's why. But it's more about my take on the joke. It's like because I was using. I was appropriating a certain type of very popular saying within the English language, and I'd added a bit of history and drama to it, particularly because I'm from Vietnam, and you might have heard of this little thing called the Vietnam War.
What? Is this happening right now?
Is it true that in Vietnam it's called the American War? Or is that one of those urban myths?
Well, it's not actually called the American War, but it's more like the war of resistance against the American imperialists.
Right.
Is there a part of Vietnam, like in America, that believes the South will rise again, or is that just an American?
I can't comment on that.
Okay. Because you think the South will rise again? Why can't you comment on it?
Yeah, I think let's not incite a race war like, on our first day.
Race
I mean,
war.
let's keep that for like mid-festival. You know that kind of second week slump. You know, when things need to get interesting.
I don't know,
we'll-
man. I
we'll
think
bring
this is your
that back.
chance. There's so many white people here. I think you might be able to win it this time.
So, how about audiences? Like, particularly at the Fringe, the festival audience is different from maybe your regular audiences.
Yeah, well, because because it's very international. You get lots of people from various places. Particularly, I mean, the one way you think about the Fringe is basically London on vacation.
I am guilty of that because I live in London, and I am guilty of kind of. I remember putting on Facebook saying, "Anyone going to Edinburgh this year?" And some friends of mine who live in Edinburgh said, "I go to Edinburgh all the time."
Yeah.
Why do you think it only exists? It's not like a Brigadoon that like just appears every August and then everybody leaves and it disappears again.
Yeah, because I think because you can divide into different types of people who go to the show, various shows, and because you have the festival, the main festival, and you have the Fringe, and you have comedy lovers who just come here purely for the comedy. You have casual tourists who just want to experience for once, and you have random Chinese tourists walking to a show. It's like, what is this?
So do you do comedy in Vietnam? Have you done comedy over there?
I've done comedy in Vietnam, yeah. So
Okay.
every time I go back, I always try to take a shot of like basically getting some sort of fan base over there.
Yeah.
Sure.
But stand-up comedy is still very, it's still a new art form in a way, because traditionally comedy has been more to do with collectives.
I have this theory actually that like right now Asia is a great place to do stand-up comedy because there's all these countries like Vietnam, like India that have a new middle class.
Indeed.
They all have YouTube and Netflix.
Indeed,
And
yeah.
no one in their countries has done comedy long enough to be good at it yet. So that's right.
And
Come
the-
at me,
and the
Indian
sta-
comedians.
No, yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and especially it's still quite expat kind of run. But it's becoming more popular. Asia in general is being more popular as a touring spot for like more high profile comedians. People like Doug Stanhope have performed there several times. And it's like a great place to like just walk and travel around. It's an excuse to let you travel. I guess it's going to keep growing, and as you said, you have this new middle class English speaking, particularly very international English speaking middle class who have access to YouTube.
Well, because it used to be it used to be a thing for the longest time that there weren't enough fans who were up to date with modern comedy in countries outside of honestly America.
Yeah.
And that was my Americanism showing, but like.
I don't know. You didn't add the greatest country on earth at the end of it. But
Well, I mean the greatest empire.
You were
on earth.
thinking it. Yeah.
It's interesting that now there isn't that gap anymore. People aren't 15 years behind. They saw the same Netflix special you did, so they have their own opinions on it. And as a result, you don't have to. You're not explaining as much when you walk on stage. You can just go straight to the jokes. They like the jokes. They can afford the jokes, and everyone can have a good time. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
Cool.
and Netflix has been a great platform for basically non-English speaking comedians as well, because you've seen all the specials, and you see that stand-up comedy does exist everywhere,
Yeah.
and humor is universal. It just depends on what you joke about. It's just,
Yeah. But yeah, I suppose you learn that. You learn that as you perform in a place,
indeed, yeah.
and you learn what not to joke about as well. I assume.
Indeed. Especially things like the Vietnam War. It might not work with a British audience much unless you have access to like Rambo or anything like.
Yes.
How does it work in Vietnam?
Vietnam, you try to avoid it because of the kind of like the political environment at the moment.
I do a full 60 minutes on Vietnam. Oh no.
And people are very well aware that they're in the country itself.
Yeah.
So you got to joke about other things.
Like the Korean.
Yeah, hey, what happens over there? They're still going on. But it's more like, for example, and there's a difference between because you still have a lot of expats. It's still expat kind of dominated you have a emerging crop of Vietnamese talents as well, and they joke about different things. Like for example, I remember I went back to Vietnam, I performed in Hanoi, the capital city, and they were glad to have me on because like most of the time you have like expats talking about lives in Vietnam. Oh, Vietnamese white people drive like this, Vietnamese people drive like that.
Right.
Whereas I would just say, oh, Scottish people are like this.
Yeah.
So you have more of a different.
So you're going back to Vietnam and making jokes about us, is what you're saying?
could
You're
you?
going to go over there.
You're gonna make fun of us Scottish people like that?
That's yeah.
How
Us,
dare you.
us us dyed-in-the-wool Scots.
I'm just
Any
preparing myself for the
publicity,
race war.
any publicity is good publicity. So, yeah.
So we're going to move on to talking about coping at the Fringe, because obviously the focus of this show is it's on mental health. It's kind of promoting good mental health. We're being supported by the Mental Health Foundation. We don't propose that we're experts on mental health, but we just want to get a sense of like what performers do in order to help. So maybe turning to you first, Sid, in terms of we've covered sort of how you market yourself. How do you look after yourself? Like it's a month up here. You're here for the whole time. How do you look after yourself? Do you look after yourself?
Well, I think it sort of depends on how you frame it. I think it's for one thing that people should know about mental health is that everyone is different. You're probably going to have a different way to make yourself feel better, and you shouldn't be worried that other people are doing different techniques. For example, a lot of people take a day off and they just use it to get out of the city. They go for a hike, or they go to another town, or they drink a ton of whiskey. And if that's what works for you, God bless you. For me, I just love doing shows. So the thing that helps me with my mental health is just getting back up on stage. Okay. So for example, if I have a bad show, the fact that I have another show in 3 hours is just another chance in the way I see it. And there's nothing like having a great show. So to me, that sort of is the focus of my mental health.
And we can tell that Sid is the one with the PR because his drink has just arrived for him. That's so you can.
Cheers!
There we go.
A rock star.
You can just enjoy that.
Oh man.
We'll get you a glass of water afterwards. It'll be warm, but don't worry about it. So yeah, you talk about like sanctuary. It doesn't really apply to you because like you just want to go on stage. Stage is your kind of
Well,
sanctuary.
especially because I come from San Francisco, where I was doing law school during the day and then comedy at night and just sleeping never. Like this is so much nicer. It's so much nicer to basically have a moment to get a good night's sleep most nights and be able to meet all my friends from all over the world or hang out again and make sure to hang out with them and do shows and do guest spots in each other's shows and make fun of each other. Like to me, I think the main source of my mental health is that I have so many friends here and I just get to relax for a second and be with them, even as you're trying to make your show as good as possible.
And you make more every time, right? I mean,
people forget this, but like this is a place that has so many people who are doing something as stupid as you, which is trying to make a career in the arts. You guys have that in common. I don't even care if that person's comedy is not my own cup of tea. At the end of the day, we relate on a level that other people just don't relate to because they're not dumb enough to try to make a living doing comedy.
Yeah, I think it's quite hard. We were saying yesterday, you make so many friends in Edinburgh, it makes it hard because you feel like you have to go and see all their shows.
Sure.
But you hope that everybody understands that like there's 3,000 of them and it's not going to be possible.
Plus, that's why you do 3 shows a day and you don't have time.
Yeah, but like the more Edinburgh Fringes you do, the more people you know. I mean, you guys both turned up for the show and immediately said, "Oh, we've met."
Yeah.
Basically.
I did your interview show last year, fresh in.
Indeed, yeah. Well, it was my first time like doing a radio interview, so having a brown person kind of smooth things a bit.
Always does. Yeah.
All right, you know what? You're on my side in this race war we're going to have here.
There's no segregation down the middle of this table.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come to you because places to eat and drink. So you're based here,
right?
So you know the hot spots. Where should people be going to get some food and?
Well, I always recommend the Student Union building, which is TBS, which offers a lot of like very cheap food and drinks because it caters to mostly students, but it's open to the general public.
Right.
So it's a nice place to chill out and
Is that open during the Fringe?
I think.
We'll have to check on it. Because is that part of Fringe Central? Is that in the same?
I think so.
Building as
The
Fringe
gilded
Central?
balloon. There's a kind of gilded balloon underbelly.
Oh, okay. That's a different place. We'll have to look this up. And I tell you what we'll do magically in the edit is by this point there will be some sort of speech bubble on screen that explains whether this is open or not.
No, but you get a lot of good pubs and good old pubs in Edinburgh, particularly in the old town. Also, I think Edinburgh is in general, it's just a great place wherever you're. Because like along Princess Street, you have to walk along Princess Street, either Princess Street or the old town. There are always places to eat.
Well, it also sort of, I think an easier way to divide it in maybe not the healthiest way is, are you drunk or not. Because if you're drunk, I know a lot of great chip shops that you need to be hitting up. Hit up Palmyra if it is after 1 a.m.
Yeah, Palmyra's
and you and your friends are wasted.
very legendary.
Yeah, exactly. That was my favorite part of the last year, is coming up with like 5 or 6 friends to Palmyra after a night of shows and drinking and just sort of unwinding and eating like pizza.
And deep fried things.
Deep fried things, yeah.
Miscellaneous deep
Things
fried
that you regretted
things.
in the morning but had a good time eating.
Yeah, you got to be. What we're trying to do is say, don't do this every night.
But most nights.
It's interesting. You've gone completely the other way, because I think a few of the interviews we've done, the first thing, a running theme is that people have said, vegetables, find a grocer, find fruit, don't forget your vegetables, but don't forget your pizza. Right?
Oh yeah. Guys, it's all about a nice balance, you know. And if for every orange you, I don't know, drink 9 or 10 beers, I think that's a nice solid.
That's a good balance.
Yeah.
That's part of your 5 a day.
It's part of the food pyramid.
Yeah, it's what, like wheat, wheat beer. That's
wheat
a
beer is
vegetable.
basically a vegetable. Yeah.
We're good.
Ginger ale.
We've also talked to people about getting outside the bubble, so getting outside of Edinburgh, taking some time for yourself and getting out there. Any recommendations on where you might do that?
Well, I don't know if this counts as getting outside of Edinburgh, but climb Arthur's Seat at least once,
Yeah.
just to get it, just to do it, just to look at that view and be able to have your own Arthur's Seat story. Don't do what I did last year, which is climb Arthur's Seat at night and have your cell phone die in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that at night.
Oh yeah, I made it to the top.
There's ghosts.
There's ghosts, and they did not help me on the way down.
But RTC, you just go to probably take a day trip to the Highlands or any of the nearby city. St Andrews is a really good place to chill, because it's just so small, it's ridiculous.
Because there are buses and trains and they're not all that expensive.
They're not expensive, and you're just like an hour train away to Glasgow. If that's your thing, I don't
If
trust
Glasgow's your thing.
If
That's your thing.
If that's your thing.
If that's your thing, you probably already own a house in Glasgow.
But yeah, so just traveling around, and because the Scottish thing, Scotland is for a small country, it can offer us a lot, and the scenery is amazing, it's magnificent. So just take a day trip around, when you're not doing a show, go on a ride, go on a train ride, go to the Highland, see the mountains.
Do you have a favorite part of the Highlands that you would recommend? Yeah, I asked a lot of hard-hitting questions on this. Yeah.
Well, no, not exactly. I mean, it's just like the general idea of a Highlands, not Highlanders, but
It's
It will be one.
It's all beautiful, really.
It's all beautiful, yeah.
It's like rolling heather, and it is just like you've seen in movies, and
yeah,
it is just nice to just sort of drive around. You could hire a car or
yeah.
bikes. I mean, you can reach it on a bike. You could cycle there.
You could walk.
Yeah, you don't have to go too far out of town. Right, we're going to take some questions from social media in a moment, but first I'm going to do a pitch on blagging, as I've written in my notes. FFS is being supported by some really great organisations, and we crowdfunded some money to start us off, but this thing is way expensive. So we're really hoping that you might, if you enjoy the content, help us out with donations. We'll put it on screen where you can go to make one of those. We're also, because we've got the production company here for the whole of the festival, we are subsidising filmings of shows. So if you would like your show filmed, then our amazing team will bring their swanky cameras and film it, and we'll put some details on a website or a social media, and the details will be somewhere on the screen by this point. Over here, I'm getting a pointy finger, it'll be over here somewhere. And you can contact us through the email address, which by the magic of television by now is also somewhere here or there. And that would be great. Any donations of your support would be most welcome, because obviously we're self-funding. Thank you. And now to social media. We have a question from Peter Michael Marino, who we actually interviewed yesterday.
He has a great show called Show Up.
He has indeed.
And you should
Everybody
show up and
knows
watch
Peter.
Yeah. I used to live in the same building as him in New York.
There we go.
Yeah.
Weirdly, he turned up for his interview, and the first person he mentioned, I said, she was literally in this seat like 10 minutes ago.
Good dude, man.
Everybody knows everybody. So Peter's question was, what keeps you coming back to the festival year after year? Not so relevant for yourself because you're here year on year,
Yeah.
But
Well, you were saying earlier that this might be your last year.
It's basically my last Fringe before if I ever had the chance to come back. So I'm just trying to make the most of it because there will be no other things in the world like this. It's just the World Cup of comedy. Essentially.
the World Cup of Comedy. Okay, we could coin that.
Except in this case, an American qualified.
Yeah. Yeah, you win the World Series.
Well, it's not financed by any authoritarian state whatsoever.
Yeah. So you're looking to move to an authoritarian state. So if there's anyone watching who needs someone to present, do radio, do comedy.
I think what's so hurtful is that me and you don't actually see Vietnam as an authoritarian state, but you do, and that's what's the most hurtful, I think.
I see everything as an authoritarian state right now.
Yeah, well, data protection.
I'm terrified just sitting here. So what keeps you coming back year after year?
It's just that sense of this is the perfect place to experiment with different styles. I think we mentioned this earlier, but normally I would come here with 60 minutes of jokes and do a very New York style hour, where I felt the jokes were more important than the points. And then this year I tried to make a show that was still as funny while trying to make a point. And I think I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing that anywhere but here, because this allows you to experiment. And the fact that you're going to get a brand new, solid-sized audience every single day, 25 days in a row, means you get a chance to really work out all the kinks and work out the show and find a way to keep testing yourself and keep getting better. And there's just really nowhere else in the world to do that in this way.
I think that's why a lot of comics like transfer when the Fringe is over. They want to get out there and do it because the show is so fine-tuned by that point. It's like the Edinburgh Festival is, let's face it, they're just previews for what you're going to do afterwards, right?
Hopefully.
From Dave Roper, we've had a question. If you could go back and tell a piece of advice to your Fringe debut self, what would it be? And this could be something performance-wise, or it could be something about the way to live during the festival.
I would say to my first self that I wish I'd experimented more. I think I was so nervous and I was so rigid with my set that I was like, very much, I have to do the material in the order that I wrote it, because if I'm truly that good at writing jokes, then that should be all that matters. It's like, you're going to be throwing a lot of curveballs, and you should just roll with the punches instead of trying to find your way back to your material. Which I guess is maybe a more technical answer than what you were looking for.
No, that's absolutely fine.
I just think that when I first got here, I was fairly open-minded about what the Fringe could offer, except on stage when I think I took less chances than I wish I had.
Yeah. There's always that risk on stage. If you take a chance and it doesn't come off, you're like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. You kick yourself.
My first year, I think I was so nervous because the show was called Bollywood Rejects, which I did not choose. And my show partner was not an Indian person. So she did a whole half hour about why she liked Bollywood. And then I would sort of come on and be like, I have no opinion on Bollywood. And then I would just do my set. And the audience would be so confused that if I wasn't funny immediately, they would leave. But I wish I told myself now, like, let them leave, who cares? You're here to get better. Like, experiment, definitely try to keep as many as you can, but this is your chance, especially back then when I was in New York, to perform for like a large audience every night.
Who you're never going to see again, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I remember that first time, on weekends, the show would be so full that people would add seats that were behind walls and watch the show. And it's like, coming from New York, I was like, I was not prepared for people liking it that much. And it was so fun and it was so exciting. What about you, man? What would you tell yourself?
Just watch out for jet lags.
Watch out for?
Jet lag.
Watch out for jet lag.
Jet lag. Because there's going to be a lot of formers who flew basically a long mile from here.
Yeah.
And jet lag is going to be a thing. I remember
What a much more practical answer than mine.
It's very practical.
because I flew for my first Fringe. I flew back straight from Vietnam to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And I remember having like jet lag for the first couple of days, or to the point that I actually missed a 10-minute spot.
Right. So the advice would be travel over a little earlier than maybe you need to?
Earlier, maybe just making sure that you're able to stay away, to sustain yourself.
Yeah. because you're going to get fringe lag once you're here. Like you get weird because of guest spots and stuff. A lot of performers get into a strange rhythm where they're like grabbing a couple of hours sleep in the afternoon, like between shows or.
Yeah, and
You know what, I want to give practical advice too. Make sure you pay your council tax before going to Edinburgh. It's very important. I wish I told myself that.
I need to do that actually.
Well, there you go.
And finally, if you could perform anywhere, this was from Maggie on Twitter. If you could perform anywhere, what would be your dream venue? We could limit this to actual venues, or I guess we could do a one-off Shea Stadium style
Well,
gig.
I feel like I have that like a double answer because I have the venue I would like to perform at where I would hopefully do well, but I also have the venue that would just be like I've done so many terrible gigs, why not take it to this level, right? I was trying to talk to someone about this. I performed on a moving bus. I performed on a stationary bus. I performed on a moving train that after my set broke down. So, and I've performed on a cruise ship. I think I have to take it to the next level. I have to perform on an airplane.
Okay.
Or a blimp of some sort.
Okay. Somebody did that. Stand-up did a set on an airplane, maybe for like a Virgin or British Airways like flight thing. They had a concert and they had like a stand-up.
And I'm sure it was terrible.
I can't remember who that was, but what we'll do is we'll skillfully edit that out and we'll put in a bit where the answer is. We won't really. We don't care. It's in the past. You can do it. Do it in space.
Oh yeah, I got to do it in space.
Yeah,
Of
no one's
course.
done that yet.
Oh yeah.
I don't think.
Not yet.
Or if they did, they faked it.
Yeah. No, well, Buzz Aldrin tried. It's not good. It wasn't good.
No.
No, very hack.
No. One small step for man. Why did the chicken cross the road? It's
You
a
ever
terrible
notice Earthlings
routine.
and Martians be different? A lot of that.
They drive their moon buggies differently.
What's the
unless you'll
deal about
explain.
oxygen?
What's with space food? Dream venue?
Dream venue. Well, at this point in my career, I try not to be too ambitious. So it's just any place that's indoor.
Any place indoors.
Indoor. I hate performing in open spaces.
That's such a
open spaces
realistic
are terrible.
expectation.
Yeah.
So no Glastonbury for you just
No.
yet. Like no main stage at Glastonbury. It's a bit windy. You're not
windy,
into the
yeah.
breeze.
No.
Well, you know, that's a big thing. I hate performing outside because it's so much more distracting. Like, and you absolutely outside have to compete with things like the wind.
And sometimes the rain.
Oh yeah, I have been there.
We've had a lot of fun already with our filming equipment, like looking up at the sky and going, what's it doing? What is it doing? Is it raining? Is it sunny?
I once
Just
did a
can't anticipate it.
The outdoors is such a weird mixed bag. I went to the show at a marijuana festival in Leeds, and it was outdoors, and everyone came to the festival thinking that there would be weed at the festival, and everyone who organized the festival thought everyone would bring their own
Be a
weed.
BYO.
Right. So 2 hours in, there is no marijuana at a marijuana festival. Everyone is angry, and they went, go perform now.
Okay.
And so we performed in an open field to just a bunch of angry people, and
A bunch of not high.
not high, very sober, angry weed smokers who thought we were deeply mediocre. And yeah.
You're lucky you weren't stoned.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's,
funny.
let's finish on that bombshell of a joke. So, what are you looking forward to in the next month? What are you looking forward to most getting out of this festival?
Just doing my show, man. That's what I came here for, and that is what I love doing. I just want to do it as many times as possible.
Just getting as much stage time as possible and just meeting new people.
Excellent. Well, guys, it's been great. It's
so
been
much,
absolutely great to meet you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
coming
much.
in. Thank you for watching. If you've stuck with it this far, you probably haven't. We could be putting in cat videos and stuff by this point, who knows. Have a great festival day. Stay hydrated. Very important. And we'll be back tomorrow with more. Thanks very much.